I needed a phrase for that. I needed a way to say this is the phenomenon that's going on. Because if this is a new resource, we ought to be able to talk about it. So my phrase for it was cognitive surplus, which is to say the free time and talents of the connected world. And I needed a way to say, essentially, here's how big this new resource is. And no obvious metric existed, so I invented one. And I started here. Started with Wikipedia, which is the largest shared resource most of us have daily experience with. Right? A collaboratively produced reference work. And so with my friend Martin Wattenberg, who studies Wikipedia, we did some back-of-the-envelope calculations. And turns out that Wikipedia, by about 2008, it had been around about 8 years then, Wikipedia had consumed something like 100 million hours of human thought. Every edit on every page in every language, every argument, every bit of source code. That had taken something like 100 million hours to create. It's a back-of-the-envelope calculation, but it's the right order of magnitude. Now, obviously, anything that takes 100 million hours to make is a huge project. But how big is that relative to cumulative free time? So I needed something else, something to compare it to. And I took television, #1 use of free time worldwide. Imagine a graphic representation of television watching. Wikipedia took, by 2008, 100 million hours to create. In the United States, we watch 200 billion hours of television every year. Or, rendered graphically, Wikipedia is here. Right? All of the effort that went into creating Wikipedia is a tiny rounding error on the television watching of one country in 1 year. Put still another way, in this country, we spend a Wikipedia project's worth of time every weekend just watching ads. So this is an enormous surplus, which means we don't need a wholesale change of human behavior planet-wide. We need a relatively small fraction of people to give over a relatively small fraction of their time to participating in new ways, and we can create astonishing new outcomes because the raw material underneath the surplus is huge. But to call it raw material in a way invites people to believe that this is something that can be mined as if it's simply a new kind of iron ore that's drawn out of networks instead of drawn out of the ground. But one of the things we're learning as we see social media start to affect the landscape is that the motivations of the people participating don't match the motivations we learned to care about in the professional world. That amateurs, citizens, us, when we lean forward to participate in these environments, aren't doing it because we think we'll get paid. In fact, we're doing it for reasons that are almost by definition not about getting paid. We're doing it because we care about each other. We're doing it because we care about the thing we're participating in. We're doing it for the same kinds of reasons that people have always socialized together. And this is actually changing the way that businesses can relate not just to their customers, but also to their products, because that triangle is being re-articulated by social media. So here's an example. This is a famous e-commerce site selling a famous book. The first book of the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, on Amazon. And the part I want to call your attention to is the 5,809 book reviews of this book. Right? Now, what possible service is there in having 5,809 book reviews? You might have thought that some kind of consensus view would have arisen after the first 2 or 3,000 reviews. But no, 5,809. So here's one where it all began. This is a book review of someone who read the book 11 years ago when they were a teenager and is now reading it to her child. So she's here saying, I'm actually coming back to Amazon to tell this story. I'm coming back to Amazon to revisit this book and to tell this story in public. And I want to call your attention to the date. This review went up 2 days ago. This review went up on Monday. This is for a book that came out more than a decade ago. So we call these things book reviews, But the people using this tool are not behaving like book reviewers, right? No one thinks, oh, this is a great book, I gotta tell people about it so they hear about Harry Potter. And yet, here they come, really every other day. If you go and look at this page, every other day, someone else has reviewed Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And the reviews are generally positive. People really seem to like this book, right? But it's not like Yelp, right? This isn't a review that says, oh, I'm going to give this 5 stars. This is a review that says, I love this book. I loved this book a dozen years ago, and now I'm reading it to my child. This is actually an act of fan culture. This is not people pretending as if they're writing for the New York Review of Books or the New York Times Book Review. These are people who are coming together, and even in a completely commercial environment, no one is under any confusion about the business Amazon is in. But because Amazon has also provided this place for people to talk to each other about things they care about, they don't have to pick one or the other. Either it's commercial or it's social. And in fact, you see people rewarding Amazon with this kind of thing. Now, it's a curiosity of our age that we're starting to get the social science that tells us something about people's variable motivations, even in commercial circumstances, at the same time as we're getting the platforms foreseeing those changes. Because for a long time, the story we told ourselves was the story of neoclassical economics, the story of rational actors who were maximizing our self-interest. Every one of us was a selfish, calculating individual. And we could render anything we could into the price mechanism so that we could understand where we stood. And what we're starting to understand is that's not true. Even people who are engaged in commercial transactions have some emotional and social commitments here that can't be chased away without some risk or loss.